Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Adrian-Tucci. I'm the program coordinator with the National Center for Science Education, and we'll be starting our webinar for the Spring Scientists in the Classroom semester in a few minutes. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to work with all of you this semester. Alrighty, I'm going to see if our chat function works. Okay, so just a few more minutes here, and then we'll get started. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to Scientists in the Classroom, our Spring 2017 webinar. I'm super excited to have all of you in the program this semester, and I'm really thankful for all the time and effort that you're putting into coordinating these pairs, so thanks again. So I just want to go ahead and introduce myself. So I am Claire Adrian-Tucci, and I'm the program coordinator with NCSE. Feel free at any time to, sorry, Anne was messaging me. Anne, if you're there and you want to kind of chime in at any point, feel free to go ahead. I know that Anne, our executive director, is super excited to voice with all of you how excited she is to have you working with us this semester. So maybe she'll do her cheerleading. But in any case, so I'm Claire, and I am working to coordinate all of the matches and keep the program organized. And so you can feel free to send me an email at any point with any sort of question, comment, suggestion to me at adriantucci@ncse.com. And I really appreciate you reaching out with me whenever you have just something on your mind about the program. It really helps to make it better. So at any point, just send me an email. So in addition to welcoming you all here, we're going to just briefly touch base and talk about the National Center for Science Education. We're going to talk through the program overview and some sort of administrative details. And then I want to talk about some keys to success, as well as dealing with challenges to science. We'll talk through some really successful pairs in our pilot year, and then we'll have some question and answers. And at any point in time, feel free to use the chat function to ask a question, or you can always send me an email afterwards. So the National Center for Science Education, so our goal is really to support educators teaching the science around socially and politically contentious but scientifically sound topics. So we've been around for about 30 years, and NCSE started in the early 1980s working to defend the teaching of evolution in public schools. And so in the last 5 years, we've expanded to include climate change education as well. And this is not to say that there aren't other socially controversial but scientifically settled topics. It's just that we at NCSE change, but perhaps the future will be different. But in any case, we have a teacher network, and through that network, we asked teachers what would be most helpful from NCSE, and what they said was that they really wanted connections to scientists in their classrooms. And so that is how the Scientists in the Classroom program was born. So in terms of our program overview, there are several different components of the program. We have our initial match meeting, which some of you may have sort of already from your match emails kind of touched base with your pair. Then we have the introductory class visit, our interactive in-class visit. Some optional additions, which obviously are optional. So if some of these things sound fun, that would be great if you did them, but totally not mandatory on our end. And then the last piece of this program is surveys. And I really appreciate when you complete the surveys, but I will talk about that in a little bit. So I just want to touch base a little administrative detail about email. And here at NCSE, we use Constant Contact to send emails. That's just our general email software. And if you're using a Gmail account, they often get sorted into the promotions folder. And so in order to prevent this from happening, what I need you to do is to click on the email and drag it into the primary section of your email inbox. And this will then prompt you to allow you to have all emails from NCSE go to that inbox. So I will be sending personalized follow-up emails for the surveys, and I did that as well also today for the webinar reminder. If this is an issue for you, please send me an email and I can walk you through this. I apologize that this is an issue that we have, and we're trying to do our best to get through it, but often it's just best if you make that change on your end. So please let me know if you're having any issues with my emails. The next thing I'd like to touch base about is a schedule for the semester. And I want to preface this by saying that these dates are just here to guide you, to give some structure and to kind of move the program along, but these dates are obviously not mandatory. We know that everyone has a very busy schedule, and we know that you're taking a lot of time away from your schedule, whether it be from the lab or from your graduate program or from teaching other topics in your classroom. But I really just wanted to give you all a sense of when things should generally be happening and when you'll be hearing from me throughout the semester. So today is our introductory webinar. If you're not watching this live, that is okay. Just make sure, I hope by this point you've realized you should view it at some point. So February 1st, which is 2 weeks from today, I hope that you and your pair touch base in a sort of introductory planning meeting. And I will then send you a survey at that point to kind of ask you about how your planning meeting went and what your plans are for the first visit. So sometime in February, the goal is for you to have your first in-class visit. By the end of February, I'll be sending our post-visit survey. And so in earlier mid-March, I'll be sending reminders filled with ideas, with activities for the second in-class visit. And then the goal is that sometime in April, you'll have your, March or April really, have your second interactive second visit. And then we'll also send you an exit survey. And so this semester, new, I am kind of giving the incentive that if you complete all of the surveys, I will send you an awesome care package with really cool NCSE swag. So we have coffee mugs, books, stickers, and it is totally worth completing, in my opinion, these like 5-minute surveys for some really cool stuff. And extra cool stuff will be sent to pairs who send me pictures. So it's really valuable for our blog and other things for us to have some pictures to kind of add in with our stuff. And so if you could send me pictures, maybe the teacher while the scientist is up at the front of the room, if you could send me a picture of what's going on in your classroom, that would be so appreciated. And I'll send that in an email at some point. So let's talk about each of the meetings that we'll have. So our initial match meeting. So the goal is for within 2 weeks of this webinar, you want to take some time and really meet with your match, either in person or on the phone. I know that those two things might be complicated to schedule, so if it has to be by email, that's fine, but a 20 or 30-minute phone call can get you far. And I know that some of you have done this already, and I really appreciate that. But if you haven't, some things that you might want to plan to talk about are yourself. So how did you become a scientist or teacher? What did you study or teach? And how is your work related to evolution or climate change? The next thing that's important here is the class. So from the teacher's end, what are the students like? What are the students' interests? And what information will the students have when the scientist visits? Obviously, you need to discuss the timing. So what dates and times work best for both of you? How many classes will the scientist be working with? And I think a really great thing to touch base about is what do you both hope to gain from participating in the program? Obviously, you have each other's application forms, and if you don't, get in touch with me. But I think it's really good to kind of verbalize that with your partner and just to help guide you in the activities and the types of things that you do throughout this semester. Can be addressed by talking about that question. And last are the school guest requirements. So in looking through the applications, we kind of generally scan to see if there are background checks needed or other types of security, but this is really the teacher will know best about what your school requires. And so teachers, we really hope that you are able to help guide the scientists on whatever sort of security or guest requirements your school has. And we hope that you'll complete this as soon as possible so that you can get going with this program as soon as possible. If there's any way that NCSE can help you facilitate this part of the program, again, just send me an email and we will do the best that we can. So a question that I get pretty commonly is I received my matches application and not all of the answers were filled out. What's up with that? So don't worry, we've expanded the application since when we first started recruiting teachers and scientists. And so newer applicants will have a more thorough application. And so if there's anything missing, just ask your partner. I think that's the easiest way to go about this one. So our first in-class visit. So it's really about the introduction. The scientists and the students get to know each other during the informal first visit. And so often scientists will talk about their research, how they became a scientist, and what it was like to be a scientist today. And this is really important because it gives students a sense of what you really do on a day-to-day basis. So are you at a computer? Are you at a desk? Are you pipetting at a lab bench? Are you out collecting things? Do you take trips to the Arctic? Like what does it really mean for you to be a scientist? And that was really valuable for the students. And so this is just one picture of a presentation that a scientist is giving for our program. You can feel free to set it up however works best for you and your partner. So the second in-class visit, the scientist is going to do an interactive activity or experiments with the students related to climate change or evolution. And so things that you should determine with your match, what will be covered, what activity will be completed with the students, and how long the scientist will need to be in the class. And from my personal experience, when I did this program as a scientist last semester, this was really helpful to really talk through all of this with the teacher that I was working with. I was super nervous that the activity that I picked was way too short and I wasn't going to have enough stuff to talk with the students, and the students were going to think I was totally lame. And the teacher assured me that I had way too much stuff and actually I needed to really pare down what I was doing. So again, the value of communication, I think, here is pretty powerful. So a question I also get is, where do I find an activity to do? So you're welcome to integrate the scientist into an activity that the teacher is already doing in the classroom or introduce a new activity in the classroom. And so on our website, under the Classroom Resources tab, we have some great resources there for you to check out. We also recommend the Clean Network, and they have all sorts of climate change and climate science activities. And for evolution, the Understanding Evolution website, as well as the Howard Hughes Medical Institute website, are both really great places to find some resources. A response to this is sometime an activity. Can I just do a presentation? And the answer is yes, presentations are welcome. We've found that the activities typically work better for this program, and works better to get the students more excited and more engaged in the material. But we really want everything to be up to the teacher and the scientist to coordinate, and whatever you both think would work best in the classroom for your visit is what you should do. Oops, sorry. And so a follow-up question from that is, well, why isn't this program more structured with exactly what we must do? And so we realized that every classroom in America and every school and every district is different. And so we wanted to create a program with built-in flexibility so that we could meet the needs of as many teachers as possible. And so we feel that by kind of making our requirements very relaxed, we're hoping that we'll be able to get more people involved, and also it'll be much easier for you to kind of incorporate in with your normal activities, as opposed to having something that does, this will really fit with what is going on in the classroom. But if you do want more structure, or you're having trouble finding a resource, please just send me an email. I'm happy to talk things through with you and find something that is of interest. Okay, so some optional additions to scientists in the classroom. While the 2 in-person visits is the minimum, we have had matches that have done several other optional activities. So doing things via Skype or social media. I think we had classes where all of the students followed a scientist on Twitter. They had additional class visits, as well as field trips. In one case, we had a scientist and a group of students coordinate a whale watch. And that was something that we did not, NCSE did not facilitate, but the scientist and teacher worked together to plan. So I thought that was really neat. And the last thing, visiting the scientist lab. We've had students tour labs as well as tour other facilities that were integral in the scientist's research collection. So these are all things that you could do. They're not things that are mandatory. We understand that some of these things might be outside of what is feasible for you to do, but just know that we will try to help support you through these things if we can in any way. So lastly, this brings me back to my surveys, which I really hope you'll complete, and I will email you to make sure that you do, or at least to ask you to. So please expect monthly surveys on your scientists in the classroom experience, just to address why we're surveying you. We want to better serve you. We want to help you to the best of our ability. We want to monitor how the program is going. And so the only way we really know what you're up to is through the surveys. We also use the survey to improve the program. So we take your feedback, we really appreciate them, and then we incorporate them into the next semester. And the last thing is that to help keep the program funded. So the data we collect helps us quantify the impact of the program, and it's really appealing to funders. So thank you so much in advance for completing all of my surveys, and you'll get an awesome care package from me once you complete them. So I'm going to take a minute and see if we have any questions here. And then we will get at some of the exciting things that have happened in past semesters. Oh. Well, okay, so it seems like some people might be having the issue that they need to create a YouTube channel to participate in the webinar chat function. I did not expect that to be the case. I thought that anybody who was there could do that. So if you're having an issue and you want to ask a question, just send me an email and I will try to do that, answer them. I am not sure why the webinar is doing that, and I apologize for that. Oh, technology. Not my best friend, I suppose. Okay, well, let's get started with the next section of our training webinar. So some keys to success. So here at NCSE, we like to think of scientists in the classroom as a dinner party, where the teacher is the host and the scientist is the guest. So, if you were a person who was hosting a dinner party, you would do your best to make sure everybody felt accommodated and welcome. And if you were attending a dinner party, you would, find something nice to bring, and you would, when you entered into this person's home, you would, act with respect, and you wouldn't rearrange the furniture and criticize the food. And so that's really what we want to kind of, have you think about as you participate in this program. So for the teachers, remember that you're the expert on your students and the most knowledgeable person about what will and won't work with your class. And so for this, I think it's really important that you communicate with your scientists regularly to plan for the classroom visits. And so you want to work with your scientists to find activities that will fit into your plans for this semester. And also included in this is helping your scientists understand what to expect. So really kind of cueing the scientist into what level they're at and what kind of vocabulary words they know or don't know, and kind of just getting the scientists in the right mode of, okay, this is the level I need to be at for this activity is really helpful. And you want to be there in the class with the scientists to be willing to help to answer questions or deal with challenges in the classroom. And again, you want to stay present when you're in the class and really help your scientists along with the students. Some keys to success for the scientists is you want to devote the time to communicate consistently with the class and the teacher you're matched with. You want to make sure that you're aware and you know the age group and grade level and the academic standing of the students. So again, this is why you really need to communicate with your teacher. You want to cover only one topic per class period, and you really want to make this a very specific one topic. You're not going to tackle all of climate change in one class visit. You want to not use jargon, so try not to use super, fancy, not unnecessary words, but you also want to, use appropriate vocabulary, but just try to stay away from jargon. Next, you want to be interactive and keep your energy up. And so you want to remember that the teacher is there to support you. And so asking for help and asking and relying on the teacher is a valuable part of this program. So do that. Another thing for the scientists is you want to ask the students questions. And so this will tell you where they are and whether they're following what you're saying. You also want to be respectful of the teacher, and the students. And so again, the teacher is a classroom expert, and also keep in mind that there's no such thing as a stupid question from a student. And lastly, you don't worry about disciplining students. Your teacher is responsible for classroom management, and so really don't be afraid to ask your teacher for help. But in these situations, you want to be respectful, but you don't need to divert class time to dealing with those types of situations. So just try to really divert the class back to the activity or topic at hand. So lessons learned from year one. So successes. So again, the teachers acted as a host to the scientists, and the scientists really were accommodating to the teacher's needs and requests. The times where we ran into trouble was that the teacher or scientist overcommitted. And so this is really important. Just be aware of what you're committing to. We found that when the scientist and the teacher stuck to the 2-visit model, we found that in our survey work that everybody seemed to think that this was really an adequate amount of time to spend for this program. So just try to check in to make sure you're not over or under committing. And another aspect where troubles occurred is where the scientist didn't check with the teacher regarding the appropriate level of information for the classroom. So this is a really important point, I think. And the last thing is please don't bring live animals. That is just generally not a great plan in our minds. So just try to avoid the live animals unless you think it is really crucial to your demonstration, but try to avoid it. So dealing with challenges in the classroom, So you are addressing socially and politically contentious scientific topics with students, right? And so realize that there might be people or students in the classroom who are uncomfortable. So my advice is to don't feel threatened or frustrated by challenging questions, and don't feel like you have to answer something that you are not comfortable answering. Realize that you are not in the classroom as a religious official, and so you can easily say things like, well, that's not my area of expertise, but this is what I can tell you, or this is what my research shows, things like that. And so a student may walk out or try to divert the conversation or lesson, and remember that that is the teacher's responsibility to handle, and your main goal is to continue to talk about the science and the data with the rest of the students, and not let one student's potential question sidetrack the whole rest of the room. So in terms of challenges about evolution, generally these are religious concerns. So a student might be genuinely concerned about the religious implications for learning about evolution. And so in these situations, I think it's important to focus on the wealth of evidence. This isn't just about Darwin. And so continuing to talk about just the wealth of evidence really helps kind of make the point that this isn't just one person's thoughts, but rather a large body of scientific work. And so again, you're not trained as a religious authority. You're not there to talk about religion. You're not there to debate. You are there to talk about the science. And challenges with climate change, students in this case are concerned about that they're learning some sort of political indoctrination or that the science is political in nature. And so remember, your job is not there to debate the science, you're not there to debate politics, and you really want to try to prevent this from diverting class time. So solutions in this case are to pull the science from the politics. And so by this, you're not debating whether or not climate change is real, but you're talking about what the science shows and how there are many different policy options. So how we deal with it could be political, but that might be a slightly harder topic to address. But focusing on the wealth of evidence with climate change is also really important. So we're not just looking at one computer model. There's a wide variety of different lines of evidence that demonstrate that the climate is changing. So last year, we had a whole bunch of successful stories, and I hope that you enjoy the program just as much and are equally successful. So we had some cases where there were biweekly in-class visits. We had multiple different lab visits. We had a question and answer sessions via Skype. In one pair, I thought this was really great. The scientist went on a collecting trip and didn't tell the students where she was going. And so they then Skyped the scientist in the field, and they played a 20 questions game so that the students could figure out where the scientist was, which I thought was really fun. And the last thing that I think is really exciting is that we've had some pairs where the partnership has continued between the scientist and teacher matches. So that's really nice to see, and we hope that that works out, but we know that that is not, mandatory, and we're not obligating anybody to that. So just keep that in mind. So again, I'll pause here for some more questions. I apologize if you're having an issue with the chat function. I will be checking my email right now to see if anybody has emailed me a question. If you can't think of something right now, but something comes up later, feel free to email me then whenever you think of your question. Alrighty, let's continue. So I think that is all the slides that I had, which is really exciting. Hey everyone. So just thank you again for, let me go back to my screen share, sorry. Thank you again for participating in the webinar and in the program. And I look forward to working with you this semester. So just send me an email at any point for questions. Thanks so much. Bye.